Good afternoon to our esteemed viewers and welcome to another edition of Inside Politics with Shitu on Politics and Business Television here in Abuja. Don't forget to follow us on our various social media platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, it's our pleasure to welcome a distinguished personality to our today's program, talking about Honorable Bolaji Abdullahi. He's a renowned journalist, an author, a seasoned politician with a rich background in public service. Is gifted with writings and he has authored notable books including Sweet Sixteens and On a Platter of Gold. As a leading voice in Nigerian politics, Abdullahi brings a wealthy experience and insight to our discussion today. Please join us and follow us on this very interesting section. And once again, Honorable, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
And welcome to our program.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Compliment of the season.
Same to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And once again, we welcome our guest to our program today on Politics and Business Television. And Honorable, let's begin with the recent State of the Nation, talking about the presidential media chat that happens a few hours ago. Yeah. How best can you describe that media chat, being a journalist, a media guru, and also a politician?
Well, thank you very much. I think the media chat was long overdue. I think it ought to have happened before now, but better late than never. I think going from here, what the presidency should do is to make it a lot more regular, periodic, rather than an occasional end-of-the-year address. The president will have his State of the Nation address, but I think the media chat is a veritable vehicle for engaging the populace, especially in a time of reform. A government that is embarking on reform, all reforms are difficult. All reform come with a lot of costs. There will be losers, there will be gainers, but the losers are always more and sometimes more vociferous in their resistance. So a government that is committed to reform needs to engage a lot more, cannot stop talking, cannot stop engaging, cannot stop explaining. After all, it's democracy. The people need to know that what the government is doing is in their best interest. So I think the media chat is a welcome development. So having said that, the impression I got was that the president is saying that, yeah, I know this is tough, but no going back. You know, I think he's trying to demonstrate strength. Right?
Exactly.
And to show that there's no backing off from this. It's what needs to be done, both for now and for posterity. So that's the general view that I got from
Okay, Honorable, I would say that you just said something that is overdue, even though. So how do you say, or what the next chat that will be coming, should it be kind of a monthly or quarterly or yearly?
Well, I mean, like I said, when you are embarking on a reform, you can't talk too much.
Keep talking.
You have to keep talking. You have to keep engaging the people. Because every single day people are questioning whether they've made the right choice.
Or not.
Because people don't want to suffer. So, but suffering is part of reform because you are asking people to make tough choices. You are asking people to shift away from their comfort zone, to embrace a new way of behaving and a new way of living, and that comes with a cost. So people will begin to ask themselves, hang on, is this what we voted for, right? So as a government that has greater clarity because you have all the information, as government you have more information than the people. The people only know what they are feeling. So you have to continue to communicate. You cannot stop communicating, right? Every single opportunity the president has to be talking, whether he's invited to a commissioning, whether he's in the National Assembly, whether he's meeting journalists at the airport, whether he's in an international fora, the president cannot stop talking, right? So it's not necessarily the organized setting of a media chat. So if you are talking of an organized setting of a media chat, then you can say, okay, maybe quarterly is good, right? So you give 4 months or 3 months, as the case may be, for interventions and processes to generate new issues for conversation, right? Then so 1 month can be too short, right?
Okay.
So 4 months is okay. Then you have 3 times in a year, right, for such structured engagement.
But professional setting.
Yeah, exactly. But for communication, for engagement, it has to be every single day.
Enlighten the nation.
It is every
Educate
single
the
day.
nation.
That is the president's first job.
Okay,
right?
Honorable. Thank you. I think so we're going to come back to that maybe as time goes on.
Yeah.
Now, Honorable, you've worked with, let me say, 3 former president of this country. You've worked with former President Olusegun Obasanjo at the African Leadership Forum in Ota.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yeah.
And you also work under President Goodluck Jonathan as a minister. And also, you're part of the Buhari's campaign in 2015.
Yes.
Okay, the question here is, can you share us experience with with these 3, characters, the leadership style, and just give us a very brief experience.
Well, I never had the opportunity to work with President Obasanjo when I was at the Africa Leadership Forum.
Okay.
He was in prison at the time that I joined Africa Leadership. He was just being released from prison when I joined the Africa Leadership Forum and went straight into politics, right, while I was still at the Africa Leadership Forum. But I had the unique privilege of editing some of the books he wrote in prison, right? This Animal Called Man, Sermon from Prison, Women of Virtue, and all that. So I understand from that, I understand the way his mind works. Then also, working with the Africa Leadership Forum, I had the opportunity to see the humongous work he did in setting up the forum and in executing the various programs of the forum since he left the president as he left as head of state in 1979. So an incredible body of work that he has engaged in, almost every topic you can think of, the Africa Leadership Forum has dealt with it. So that gives me the impression, right, that this is a man that is very deliberate, in the engagement with policy conversations, and of course those who work with him will tell you that he has an incredible capacity for work, and of course the network of relationships, that he has built globally is almost unmatched by anybody in this country. So I can say that about President Obasanjo.
Okay. What about the President Goodluck?
President Goodluck Jonathan is more self-effacing, Is what they say about power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. President Jonathan is one person that I think did not allow power to corrupt him. He used to say that if the president of Nigeria were to use just 40% of the power available to him, he will become a monster. So you have this individual who was aware of the enormity of the power at his disposal, yet he was reluctant to use it, because he knew the consequence, the implication of full deployment of those powers that he has. People say all kinds of things about him. I've had the privilege of working with him for 3 years. I think he loved Nigeria. He is committed to Nigeria. He believed that change was possible, and you could see that from the caliber of people that he has assembled in his cabinet, to champion the various reform, the transformation agenda, as he called it, So I think for him, he trusted the people that he worked with, and he believed that they could make the change happen, and he could just provide the leadership. So he's not someone who he's not as pushful as a President Obasanjo, for example. From what I have observed. Yeah. Yes, I was in the Buhari campaign, but I was never part of the government. I was also in the party as the national public secretary of the party. So he has a different style of his own. He's more or less, from what I've seen, maybe aloof, right? Unlike the other. That does not mean the bad thing, right? But in terms of the kind of leadership characteristic, so I think they differ in various ways. But one thing you can say for all of them is you cannot doubt their commitment to Nigeria, to serving the country.
Okay, Honorable, let me go back to the former President Goodluck Jonathan. You wrote a book on a platter of gold.
Yes.
What inspires you? Because in that book, let me quote one of that. He said, "We voted Goodluck Ebele Jonathan as a president because he has no shoe when he was going to school. Now he wants to remove our legs."
Yes, that's what somebody said.
Okay, that's what somebody
wrote. Somebody wrote it on his Facebook page.
Okay.
During the January 2012 fuel subsidy protest.
Okay, protest.
Right.
Okay.
So there were all kind of comments. You know, he was the first president that deployed the power of the social media to ride into power. You know, almost Obama-like in his approach to using the young people and their engagement with the social media, you know, and that was why at that time he was easily like the most popular president in the world, you know, on social media, I mean. You know, so like you said, what inspired what I wrote was, how could someone that was so popular and so loved by young people turn around within the space of a short time to become the most abused president on social media?
What do you think may be the cause of that? You know, just a sudden change and, you know, human perspective about these subjects.
Yeah, I think that was what I tried to study on the book on a platter of gold. Why, you know, and what I found to be a major turning point was the fuel subsidy removal of January 2012. You know, I think not just the fact of the subsidy itself, but also the manner that it was done and the context, the global context within which it was done, right? 2011, 2012, that was the time that Jonathan's presidency was just settling down, was also the time of global crisis, you know, across the world. It was the time of the Arab Spring.
Yes.
It was the time of occupied Wall Street.
Exactly.
It was a time of, there was a global meltdown of young people engaging the government. And Nigerian young people were looking at what was going on all over the world, and they were asking themselves, oh, how could we be part of this global movement? Then the government removed the fuel subsidy on January 2012, and they said, that is it, right?
Yes.
And that enabled them to connect to that global angst against the government, you know. So I think that was a major, if it were to be a different context, global environment, you know, it probably not have been so much implicated as it was at the time, right?
Yes.
So, but if you are asking me, what was a turning point in President Jonathan's relationship with young people in this country, right? The sense of betrayal that they felt, you know, was that January 2012 fuel subsidy removal. Not because of the subsidy itself, not because of the subsidy removal itself, but because of the opportunity it provided for the weaponization of that action, you know, against the government at the time.
Okay, thank you very much. And let's a little bit move away from that. These former presidents, you know, talking about the Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, the former President Olusegun, and even Yar'Adua. You've said at least the capacity in which you work with these people. You are a politician.
Yes.
Also a journalist.
Yes.
Now, before we go into politics, now let me quickly ask you this. You've, at the peak in which anybody in journalism field want to reach, God has given you that opportunity, and glory be to God for that. Your experience in media and in terms of operating in a system of our country like this, how will you describe such relationship?
Yeah.
As a journalist, as a head of a newspaper, then that we know. So, was that a kind of? Would you say there's a freedom of operation from the media perspective in society with the governments?
Well, I mean, I started my journalism practice when former head of state General Sani Abacha was still in charge of this country. And every journalist will tell you that was the most difficult time for journalists, probably the most difficult time for journalists in this country. I wasn't so exposed to the brutality, the full brutality of what happened, unlike so many of our colleagues, right? I was writing for This Day, but I had my own little brush with the law enforcement people, the security people, But as it is characteristic of all dictatorship, all military rule, yes, the constitution says you had freedom of expression, but like someone said,
Of course.
is your freedom after the expression
You can't guarantee you.
could not be guaranteed, right?
Yes.
You know, but in terms of overall, I think Nigeria has been good to free speech. I think free speech has thrived in Nigeria, especially since the advent of military rule. During President Jonathan, that was one I was familiar with. I don't think any president had come under the kind of abuse and attack, you know, that the Jonathan administration came
Even
under.
this current government?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I'll come to that.
Okay.
Right? Then the Jonathan administration came out, and I can't remember that anybody was arrested for saying, well, I mean, maybe they were, but I'm not really aware of it. You know, so generally as a journalist, I think making the transition into government, of course, I had a different kind of responsibility being government rather than continuing to be a journalist, you know. But of course, I still have, I'm still sympathetic to my original constituency, which is the journalism constituency. And that informs some of the way I did my work, even as a national public secretary of the party, because I saw journalists, or even as a minister, working with sports journalists. And that my background informed the kind of relationship that I was able to develop with them. But generally, I think the record of free speech in Nigeria has not been so bad, especially since the advent of a civilian democracy, you know.
As concerned. Well, okay. Now we've talked about your experience, you know, and what you could say about the relationship in terms of the media and the government. Now let's talk about, you're also a politician. You serve in different capacity. Should I say that as a commissioner of education under His Excellency, the former governor of Kwara State, and the Senate president, that's Bukola Saraki. We come back there because I saw a news last week or 2 weeks ago that you've resigned from the PDP. Then we come back to that. Now, but let's talk about some of the achievements and, you know, renovation you've done in this as a commissioner for work. I mean, for education. And Kwara State, Ilorin to be precise, and Kwara State are difficult, you know, especially the capital, which is Ilorin, although they believe in Arabic learning. Was there any challenges you face in terms of, you know, doing some kind of a reforming, you know, and trying to transform the system of education? Because they don't believe, especially the capital, like I said, of Kwara, which is Ilorin, believe in Arabic learning, which is literally called Ilikeo. You tell us, share us the experience you had then.
Islamic education is part of Ilorin culture. It's part of our culture. You can't find an Ilorin child that has not probably completed the Quran since before primary school, before the end of his primary school. I completed my Quran in primary 6, right?
Oh, great.
So it's part of our culture. You know, it's even those of us who live outside Ilorin now, is a major objective, parental objective, to ensure that our children are able to learn the Quran at least, you know. But aside that, we have Arabic education as a major dimension of the overall education system. You know, so we run the dual education system. You know, you have so many of our young people going into madrasas and Islamic schools as they are called. Then we have also those who are in the secular Western education, the one that you and I also have attended. So my
challenges.
The major focus of what we're trying to do at that time is we focused mainly on basic education because we believe this was the foundation for every other thing. And the major objective was how do we get children to be literate? Because that's the objective of basic education. You know, children completing primary education, how do we get them to be literate, you know, and be able to do basic arithmetic that they can build on later education, you know. Of course, that's a major form of reform, you know, because it now means that you have to get teachers to behave differently, you have to get parents to behave differently, you have to get the entire community, societies working together. You know, that was really, really difficult, you know, especially when that kind of thing had not been done before. So education reform, such that we tried to do, was quite contentious, right? Because of the behavior modification that had to go with it. And that's why you see that most governments don't want to do it. They rather continue to build classroom, award contracts, and all that, rather than engaging in this. But alhamdulillah, I think we made some progress, because we were delighted. I had a big support from the governor, Dr. Saraki, at the time, and we were able to do things, and we were able to see that even before the end of the administration, people started bringing their children back to the public school.
That's great.
So it's
well, okay. You also serve as a minister of sports.
Yes.
This country, and that's at the federal level, very high level. Of course, a lot of issues will definitely come from the north. This is not only Kwara State again, that it's your own state. You have to attend to the people of the southeast region. You have to attend to the people of the north, northwest, and the rest. Also, were there any challenges you faced then?
The challenge. I mean, if you are working in the public sector, there will always be challenges.
Sure, of course,
right?
Sure.
But the challenge that I faced as Minister of Sport was different. Was a different kind. Okay. Sport itself, by nature, is a very controversial sector, and that's why the sports sector sometimes is referred to as a career killer. For ministers. I think I was the 32nd Minister of Sports. I don't think there's any other sector that has so much turnover of ministers since independence. So I looked at the list, and I found that majority spent only 1 year. So sometimes like NYC posting, for ministers. So I was lucky. I spent up to close to 3 years. So the challenge is that the sports sector itself is a very, very volatile, very controversial sector, because it's a sector that pulled the interest of almost everybody in Nigeria. It's the only sector that you have in newspapers. You have newspapers devoted to that sector that everybody reads every day. You have every newspaper having at least 2-4 pages devoted to that sector every single day. So it's a sector that almost every Nigerian feels they know better than the minister himself, and the people doing it. It's the only sector that your performance is rated by what other people do rather than what you do, right?
Of course.
So if the athletes jump very well or run very well and all that, they take the credit. If they don't, you take the blame. So it's a different kind of challenge that's less political and more in terms of what the people want and all that. So
there was not any political, interest while you were serving as a minister. Like we've seen a lot of when some stakeholders, like even the NFF president, was like, there are some political intervention in terms of picking off. Let's talk about the football. Like, okay, this also as of rep or senator brings some. Did you also face the kind of challenges then? Like, okay, as a minister, he's my friend, Bolaji is my friend, or my son can play.
No. We laid the groundwork from day one. I never experienced it. Nobody ever approached me to help them get their award into the national team, because we were not going to do it anyway. Even when we were selecting the under-17, the one that most people will want their children to get into, we made it very clear. We were probably the first that brought MRI machine, to actually test the bone marrow density of these children to be sure that they are actually under-17. We were very clear. We're not crazy to win the under-17 World Cup. We've won it 4 times.
Yeah, you won the Golden Eaglets.
Yeah, the under-17 in Abu Dhabi.
In Abu Dhabi.
So we just wanted to be sure.
I was about to ask, how did you feel when the Golden Eaglets won that? What was the secret behind that and success, the victory?
I think we had very good. You see, the most important factor for me, from what I've seen, the most important factor in Nigerian football is that you have stability. Nigerians don't lose games because our players suddenly become bad, right? We lose games because of other things that are happening outside the football field, right?
Okay.
When you find people within the federation fighting themselves, right? Sabotaging themselves, undermining themselves, right? You find the ministry and the federation working at cross purposes, right? That is a perfect recipe for failure, right?
Yeah.
So one of the major factors that led to the kind of the success we achieved whether in winning the Africa Cup of Nations in 2013 or in winning the Under 17 World Cup, was that we started with resolving the various conflicts within the footballing family itself, the institutions, right? That was a takeoff point, because I realized quite early enough that if we didn't do that, we're not going to move forward. Because people were coming to me and reporting themselves and trying to recruit me to their sites. And
that's a way, that's the Nigerian way, you know. Like,
do you get what I'm saying?
He's from my state, he's from my local government, he's a friend to my uncle, and what to do?
So people undermining themselves and all that, you know. So so that's a very important thing. But asking specifically about Abu Dhabi, I think what we did was to ensure that children that we took there were actually under 17. Okay. You know, and we had a very good coach, I think Manu Garba at the time, right? And the federation was very stable, you know, and we gave the right kind of incentives. I was there myself throughout the tournament, you know. So so I think those are the key factors that led to. And I'm glad to see the likes of Taiwo Awuni, the likes of what's his name, this boy that used to be in Leicester City. I can't remember him now. You know, so they were.
I think it was 2012, the Olympic in London.
Yeah, August 2012.
Yes.
Yeah.
During then, there was not any gold medal that was home to Nigeria.
That was yes. You see, I'm glad you are bringing this up. You see, I was drafted to supervise the ministry. I was the Minister of Youth Development. Then the Olympics was coming. Then the president said I should oversee the Ministry of Sports, because they had no substantive ministry. Yes. So I was drafted to oversee them. Then we went to Olympics about 5 months or so after I've joined the ministry. And I remember that when we were leaving Lagos, you know, because of the preparations that we've made, everybody will tell you that's probably one of the best preparations we've had. You know, we had our athletes camping all over the world, we were paying their whatever and all that. So when we were leaving Lagos, I was promising that, we're going to come back with gold medals and all that, you know.
Yeah, being optimistic.
I was very optimistic, you know, because I thought that all we needed to do was to go to the Olympics and just do our best, and if we did our best, then we will get medals, you know. Of course, we didn't come back with anything. Then that was when I realized that Olympics is a different ball game entirely. Wow. You know, different ball game. No. Olympics is not a place you prepare for in 6 months and go to win medals.
You have to prepare very well.
Not very well. It's a lifetime commitment.
Wow.
People who win Olympic medals probably have been doing it since they were age 8 or 9 or 10. Wow. You don't go and look for some adults that have been formed in their bones, that have been formed in their nutrition, you know, and few weeks to the Olympics. Before the Olympics, people already know the people that are likely to win things, you know, right? You don't come from nowhere and win an Olympic gold medal. They will have seen your performance at the different IWAF event, the Indoor Sports Game, the Diamond League, the Eugene, and all that. They will have known your ranking in the world. Right? If you're a weightlifter, they know your global ranking. They know you. I mean, the federation, global federation, your colleagues know you, that there's this guy in Nigeria that is ranked this number. Wow. So you don't come from nowhere and win an Olympic gold medal. They will test your bone marrow for drugs, because who is this guy? Where is he coming from? Wow. Right? You know, I mean, you have cases like Mary Oyali, I mean, that happened, but how come we've not been able to repeat it since then? Because that was just an outlier, right? So Olympics, and that's what I try to say, that those of you who are in the media need to help Nigerians to understand that Olympic is a lifetime commitment and it costs a lot of money, right? And that's why when you see the medal table at the end of the day, it more or less reflects the strength of the economies of those countries, China, the USA, you know, Great Britain, Germany, you know, Japan, you know. So you can see that the G7 countries, you know, more or less end up topping the gold medal, right? Gold medal table. And that's why I say for Nigeria, we need to identify our niche areas. What are our strength areas that we can invest in over a 4-year period, 8-year period?
I think,
right?
I think so, to just a little bit interject on that, what you're saying, because you said as a Olympic is not something that you just prepare in 6 months. You have to start something from the. That's I could remember there's a particular slogan that's catch them young.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to have a school like that have to do with sports. You know, it's not only going to school and you know have your English, mathematics. We should have also a school that can take our kids and our younger ones into sport activity, because the same thing repeats itself in 2024 here. No single gold medal was brought home. It
will repeat itself again in the next Olympics.
Why?
Because we are not doing anything differently.
Wow.
It's like we've not learned any lesson. You know, after 2014, President Jonathan convened the National Summit on Sports.
Okay.
And there were things that were agreed on. There were strategic plans that were developed on things we needed to start doing differently, right? We identified like 5 areas, 5 sports that we said Nigeria will focus on and start to invest. Right? We appeal to some state government to adopt some of these sports and actually give sponsorship, make their state the center of excellence for the development of those sports. Right? Then we can bring in lottery money like Team Great Britain, you know, bring federal funding, right, over an 8-year period. When we started that plan, I told President Jonathan that, Mr. President, sir, I don't think we'll be lucky. We may get lucky and win some medals in Brazil, right? But I can guarantee that if we follow this, we're going to win medals in Tokyo, right? So, but again, I left and we went back to square one, right?
Okay. So, all right, but let's move a bit further. And you know, we've talked about your performance, your experience as a minister. We've talked about your experience as a commissioner for education in Kwara State. Still on your political journey. In the last general election, you also contested as senator.
Yes.
Yes. As a journalist, I have some findings, some background that when. Let me start like this. How well should I say? Who is Senate former? Senate President. Former governor of Kwara State, Senator Bukola Saraki.
Yes,
who is he to you?
Oh, it's my leader. It's been my leader. It's been my boss for over 20 years, right? For 20 years, it's been my leader. It's been my boss. I followed him everywhere. He supported my career, you know, and I've been loyal to him, you know, as best as I can. So that's what he is to me.
Okay, fine. In 2023, you run under the platform of the PDP, and I remember then. Because yes, I'm from Oyo State, but I still follow the politics of Kwara State due to one or two. I know. At the point, you wanted to, you know, take away the ticket from you, and you wanted wanted to lead to, you know, some kind of, you know, issues between you and former governor. Can you share a little bit light to that?
In 2023.
Yes.
No, they were just rumors. I mean, he never spoke to me about taking the ticket from me, and nobody did.
Because I saw some of your media boys there was trying to, you know, push some kind of a blackmailing, posts and publications about President of and former Governor Bukola Saraki. Like that was when we had that. Okay, fine, because they wanted to give it to the former national chairman. I think, if I'm right.
Well, it appears that those of you in the media seems to know more about this than those of us who are in the field.
So that's why,
right? I mean, because I was the one directly involved, and I know what happened, right? So, yes, there was at a point it was like, was it going to be me, or was it going to be the former national chairman of PDP, Alhaji Bolaji, right? So, in the end, the party took the decision that it was going to be me, right? So while it was either or, each side tried to do their best to ensure that they won the ticket. So maybe that's what you were saying, right? But there wasn't anytime anybody called me to say, oh, hand over the ticket. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
So at that point, there were possibilities of either of us getting it, right? But the moment it was decided that I was the one that would be the candidate, that was it.
Okay. How can you describe your journey, political journey with Senator Bukola Saraki?
I mean, it's been a very very educative journey. It's also been an inspiring journey. Yeah, like all journeys, it also had its own challenges, and there were moments of frustration, like in all relationships, right? But I think if you ask me, half empty, half full, I would say half full, right?
Half full. What do you mean by that?
I mean, if you ask me if the cup is cannot be 100%, right? So if you ask me whether the cup is half empty, right? Whether I would say my experience is bad, or you say it's half full, which means that experience is good,
yes.
I would say it's half full.
Okay,
right?
okay.
Yeah, so...
Well, okay. Since you said, it's not bad and it's not good.
I didn't say that.
You didn't say that?
Yeah, I didn't say that.
Okay.
I only say that it was a very rewarding, it was a very rewarding journey.
Okay.
In terms of what I've learned, in terms of what I did, in terms of the experience I've had, both good and bad. So it's a very, very rewarding journey.
You resigned from the party 2 weeks ago, the PDP.
Yes.
Can you confirm that to us?
Yeah, of course I did.
Why? The leader, you agreed that Senator Bukola Saraki is your leader.
Yeah.
And he's still in the same party. What happened?
Well, I mean, we didn't start our relationship because I was a PDP member or I belonged to any political party. Like you yourself said, I was a journalist, right? So he invited me to come and work with him in the government, right? And I served him to the best of my ability. He has helped my career. He has given me opportunities, and I've also paid back by being loyal to him, and I've followed him to every political party that he has gone since then, right? I remember that when we started, I was 35.
Okay.
I was 35 when we started out in 2003, and he was about 41 or so, right? So we're all young people, right? But today I'm 55.
Wow.
Right?
That's true.
So I think it's only fair enough that at 55, I should be able to decide what kind of politics I want to play and what direction that I want to go. I mean, having followed someone for 20 years, I think I've paid the due of loyalty. I'm not saying that, I'm not saying anything other than that is a decision that I've taken, that at 55,
but did you consult him before you do that?
We had conversations.
Before you took the decision? We had conversations. And you say you should go ahead?
No, I mean, you're not going to say, oh, I want to leave the party, therefore will you allow me, and all that, And
but
that's
what was because now, when I saw the news, I was like, maybe it's a rumor. Well, I later confirmed from people that I know they are on ground. I say, yeah, it's not a rumor, it's a fact.
Yeah.
And thank God I'm having you here in the studio.
Yeah.
I think I must thank you for that. I just have to notify you yesterday. I say, fine, it's okay. That shows how media friendly you are.
Yeah.
I must sincerely appreciate that.
Yeah.
You have coming to the studio.
Yeah.
Yes, the reason why I say, and he gave you the go ahead to go, that is like you said something that you've been together for over 20 years or thereabouts.
Over 20 years, yeah.
Over 20 years thereabouts. Yeah. Yes, I know you're an adult and you can take your decision.
Yeah.
But looking at the relationship, because now at the moment, people are even thinking that APC is, that is the opinion of people, though, because of the achieve, nobody can shy away from that. Seeing people, although you've not announced where you're going, because I'm still coming to that, but now people believe that, well, if it is not PDP, it is APC. Well, I say, okay, let's see what will happen. Because politics, there will always be alignment and realignment, agreement and disagreement. Now you live in the PDP. And, and from the information I gathered in Kwara State, it's not as if the governor is even, doing fine based on people's, submission and opinion. That is not my own. But what led you, what exactly pushed you to, let me leave PDP and, going to whatever? You've not said that. Which we
I said, for me, I just feel that at this time, that is the best decision for me. PDP, as it is in its current state, no longer fits into my idea of politics, the kind of politics I want to play, right? It may change tomorrow, right? If it does change tomorrow, I may reconsider my position. Right, but what I'm saying is that, and if you, the wordings of my letter was carefully chosen. I said, at this time, right, it was the best decision for me to take. It means that based on the prevailing circumstance that the party has found itself, right, or the party is now, that's the decision that I had to take. Now, about my relationship with Dr. Saraki and what may have informed my choice, I don't have, there's nothing. You know, in the aftermath of my resignation, people were saying all kind of things. Maybe I have problems with him or he has problems with me. I don't have any problems with Dr. Saraki. And I don't think he has any problems with me, right?
You said so.
Yeah, I mean, I know
That's
so.
right, it is?
I know so, right? I don't have any problems with him.
You're very sure?
I'm absolutely sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Honorable, yes, it's a state of nation.
Yeah.
We've talked about your personal politics, your movement politics, and your career so far. Glory be to God on that. Now, let's come about to the presidential media chat. You know, the president said a lot of things yesterday. You know, it talks about there's no going back on the removal of fuel subsidy and the tax reform bill. You know, now, before yesterday night, you know, people have been complaining about the economy, how bad the economy is. What is your own view on the issue of the economy of this country?
Well, let me start saying by saying I'm not an economist.
Okay.
So I'm not an expert on these issues. But as far as I know, given my own engagement, I mean, I'm a journalist, you know, so I engage some of these issues and try to understand what is going on around me. I think some of these reforms were necessary.
Necessary.
Absolutely. I think tax reform is necessary. I think fuel subsidy removal.
Honorable, you've studied the bill very well, in and out.
I believe that tax reform was necessary.
Yes.
I'm not talking about the content of the bill. You are not asking me about tax reform bill. You are asking me about tax reform.
Let me rephrase my statement.
Yeah.
The content of this tax reform bill.
I've not read it.
You've not read it?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead with your thoughts about
so
tax reform.
What I'm saying is that tax reform was necessary, right? Okay. Because anything that is done, I assume that the purpose of the tax reform, from what I've seen, from what I've heard, that the purpose is to bring more revenue into government coffers, right? I think tax administration, despite all the efforts that have been made over the years, I think tax administration is still very weak in Nigeria. There's still, I think there's still a lot of what is it called, tax evaporation going on. So anything that is being done to bring more tax into to expand the tax net and bringing more revenue into government coffers, I think is welcome. And that's without prejudice to people who have concern about the particular details in the bill. And to the extent that I know, they are talking about the VAT and the formulas for sharing the VAT. That is a different issue entirely, you know, and it's led for people to look at what their interests lie, you know, in that regard. The little that I know about the issue of the VAT in particular, the VAT in particular, is what percentage of VAT will be the right percentage, right? The secondly, in terms of sharing formula, how much percentage should be going into derivation, right? How much percentage should be going to general port for sharing, right? And all that. I think this is where the controversy really lies. I think the bill, from what I've heard and read, is proposing 60% for derivation.
Exactly.
And that is where the major controversy lies.
And 20% for populations
and exactly. Yes. So I think these issues need to be negotiated. Right? I'm not querying the principle of the reform itself, but I think where people's interests are affected, right, in a democracy, it has to be negotiated. I believe that the federal government ought to have engaged in these negotiations even before the bill was transmitted to the National Assembly. So whatever argument or controversies that will be generated from the bill will have happened behind the scene, right? Let the National Economic Council debate it. Let the Governors Forum debate it. Let the engagement be
critical stakeholders.
Critical stakeholder debate behind closed doors, right? So what we will be seeing in the end in the public domain was the consensus, right?
Yes, the outcome.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Public policy is messy, right? And you don't wash the dirty linen in public, right? So because of the messy nature of public policy, especially in terms of reform, it is better that you lock the stakeholders in a room and splash as much mud as you could on your faces before. But once you don't come out until you agree, right? You don't come out with it until you agree, right? To a reasonable extent, right? Yeah. So I think that is where I have my reservation.
I believe you. I've listened to some of the leaders, critical leaders. You are from the northern part of the country.
Absolutely.
Yes, north central, but it's part of north. It's either the north region or the south region.
Yes,
That's before the amalgamation. You know. So some of your leaders in the northern parts are raising a very serious concern. Like there's no going, this bill they are not going to accept it. And even though, yes, you said you've not read the bill in details, but you've listened to some of these, leaders. And do you still stand, or do you still believe, despite the fact that you've listened to some of these leaders and which is their, their specialization? Do you still think that, they should still, the government, the president should still go on, and with the point, statement that the president made last night, that no going area,
no going back,
rather. What do you, if you're to advise the president, what would be that?
Let me say that it's unfortunate that this thing is reduced to north-south. It's quite unfortunate indeed. I don't want my children to grow up in a country where public policy is viewed in terms of north-south. Right, I think it's wrong. I think we should have tried to outgrow that. A policy is either good or bad, right? And every policy has its political implication. Every policy has its political implication. And the measure of whether a particular policy will succeed or fail depends on how well the politics is managed. So I think the controversy that you've seen so far is partly as a result of the mismanagement of the politics behind it. There is no policy that is politically neutral, right? So, and that includes this particular one. So what you see and call controversy is actually the politics of policy playing out, right? So I will expect that the president, I salute his courage, saying there is no going back, but I don't think he's saying that the government is not willing to give opportunities for engagement and for negotiation and for conversations on this, right?
Okay, let me ask you this. Do you believe in this government, or do you believe in this president, in the president, Bolaji Tinubu?
He's the president of Nigeria. Whether I believe in
your opinion. You're a politician. You are a leader.
I think we need to be very careful. I think we need to be very careful here. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is a responsibility of every citizen to ensure that you play your part in ensuring that this president succeeds. Before he became the president, you can say, I don't like him, I don't want him.
Nobody is going against...
No, hang on a second.
Of course, everybody is our responsibility to support him.
Yeah.
But talking about, maybe, let me put it like this. If I say, do you believe in him? I'm not talking about him himself.
Okay.
But do you believe in some of the things he's doing?
Now you are asking me a different question. If you are asking me whether I believe in some of the things he's doing, it's a different question on whether I believe in him.
Okay.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Do you believe in some of the things he's doing?
You ask me a specific question regarding specific policy. Which of the things are you referring to?
Let me generalize it. The governance.
I don't understand. Are you asking me, you know when you asked me about tax reform bill,
yes,
we had conversation on that.
Okay.
If you ask me about fuel subsidy removal, I'll give you my opinion on that. If you give me another policy, I'll give you my opinion on that.
That's why I wanted to generalize it.
Yeah.
Because the fuel subsidy we're talking about is part of the governance.
Yes.
The tax reform bill is part of the governance. The economy is part of the governance. Whatever, the budgets, which I want to ask you, and I want you to quickly talk about it because of the time. Do you believe generally? And the reason why I don't want to pick this point out, because of time consumption. And okay, do you believe generally in what President Tinubu is doing in terms of governance?
I can say that what I can relate with is that some of the measures that the government has taken has brought hardship to the people. The question I'll ask myself is whether the people understand why they had to suffer. Right?
Okay.
I think that is where government needs to do a lot more.
Like what?
And like I said earlier, when you are introducing measures that are likely to introduce hardship, one thing you could do, are there ways you could mitigate? Because you know those actions were necessary,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
You cannot make omelette without breaking eggs,
Of course,
right?
of course.
But you could make it less painful for the chicken.
Chicken.
Right? So are there ways you could mitigate the hardship, the impact of the hardship? If you introduce this, it's like applying medication to a sick patient,
Okay.
right? That's why it is carefully calibrated, right? If you administer too little, too late, it might kill the patient. If you administer too much, too soon, too fast, it might still kill the patient. So what is the right measure of the dosage that needs to be applied to the treatment of this particular ailment? That is what is important. So, and that's why we are talking about calibration. So one, there is no medicine that does not have a side effect, but are there things you can give the patient to mitigate the side effects of the medication you are giving, since you know that it's a necessary medication?
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying that for me, it is not about whether you agree or you don't agree and all that. Is that, are there things that need to be done? Because the average person in Wuse market probably doesn't know why the prices of commodities have skyrocketed.
Okay, now that will make me to ask you this question. In less than, 2 minutes, I will also want you to do justice to that.
Yeah.
The issue of the budget that the president proposed last week.
Yeah.
Do you see any hope in that budget? And do you see that budget like, something that is going to be realistic?
If it's implemented. Because the concern is whether it will be implemented. Because if you look at last year and the present budget, the overall complaint is that the budgets are not being implemented. For whatever reasons, I don't know, maybe lack of resources, maybe lack of what. But the important thing is that if the budgets are implemented, you probably get the kind of promises that is made based on those. But if they are not implemented, then it's just an exercise.
Well, thank you very much. Before we go, last night you've resigned from PDP. Where is the next political party?
I don't know yet. I'm going to decide when at the right time.
Do you see another political party emerge in the next coming years or months or weeks?
It's possible. It's politics. It's possible. There's still time. It's possible.
Is that what you're waiting for?
Not necessarily.
You're going back to APC?
It's possible.
You mean you want to go back to APC?
It's possible.
Wow.
I'm not saying I'm going to APC. I'm only saying it's possible.
But if there's another merger, you can definitely go into it.
It's possible.
Okay, thank you very much.
You didn't ask me if I would be happy to go back to PDP.
Okay, fine. Let me ask you that question.
Yeah.
Also be happy to go back to PDP?
It's possible.
You just left the party, last week.
It's politics.
Well, politicians.
Yeah.
Well. Thank you very much, Honorable Bolaji Abdullahi. It's a very nice moment we're spending with you here in our studio in Politics, Business and Television. And we must say thank you for granting these this audience to come and to also tap from your experience and your challenges, your journey so far, if I'm to put it like that. And we never take this for granted. On behalf of the management of Politics and Business Television, starting from the director of the media, Haja Medina, we say thank you very much and wish you all the best in your political journey.
Thank you very much.
I remain Shitu Abdul Fattah, your presenter, live on Politics and Business Television here in Abuja. Thank you. Have a lovely day. A Merry Christmas in advance and Happy New Year in advance. Thank you very much.